Talking business is our billing on this show. This is the World of Business, your weekly cutting-edge business show where we give you the latest and trending business stories as well as latest updates on the stock markets. We also herald unsung but thriving entrepreneurs on this show. Hello and welcome to the World of Business. My name is Steve Tadzoka. Today, we will zero in on the performance of the key economic sectors such as the manufacturing sector, the mining sector, the energy sector, the agricultural sector, as well as the finance sector for the first half of 2023. But first, we took a look at the exchange rates as of today.
Exchange rates as of Thursday, the 27th of July, were as follows. The Zimbabwe dollar to the USD interbank rate was at $4,504.50. The Zimbabwe dollar to the Great Britain pound interbank rate was at $5,831.11. The Zimbabwe dollar to the euro interbank rate was at $4,996.62. The Zimbabwe dollar to the South African rand interbank rate was at $0.0039. The Zimbabwe dollar to the Botswana Pula interbank rate was at $345.55.
We also give you commodity prices on the global markets.
Commodity prices as of Thursday afternoon were as follows. Gold per ounce traded at $2,014.70 after it went up by 0.26 percentage points. Silver per ounce traded at $25.15 after it went down by 0.70 percentage points. Copper per pound traded at $391.95 after it went up by 0.45 percentage points. Platinum per ounce traded at $972.22 after it went up by 0.51 percentage points.
That's all we had for you in the first segment of the World of Business. Do join me in the second segment where we are going to be analyzing the performance of the key economic sectors that we highlighted for economic recovery, such as the manufacturing sector, the mining sector, the agricultural sector, the energy sector, and the finance sector for the first half of 2023 with guest Mr. Trymore Muhlanga, an economist. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the second segment of the World of Business. And like I said earlier on, we are going to be analyzing the performance of the key sectors that we highlighted for economic recovery. And some of the sectors include the manufacturing sector, the mining sector, the finance sector, as well as the agriculture sector for the first half of 2023. And to join me and help me unpack this conversation is an economist, Mr. Trymore Muhlanga. Hello and welcome to the World of Business.
Blessed day to you, Steve. Blessed day to Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Now, to kickstart the conversation, against the gross domestic product growth of 3.4% that was recorded in the last quarter of 2022, Zimbabwe's economy is projected to grow by at least 5.3% as of this year. And this growth is projected on the back of improved farm yields, better electricity supply, strong mineral prices. And this is according to what the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development stated. So let's look at those key performance sectors. How are they doing so far as we are in the second half of 2023?
Thank you, Steve. So to note is that in the National Development Strategy 1, 2021 to 2025, the target is to grow the economy by an average of about 5% per annum GDP per year. So 5.3% is on target. So when you look at the major sectors, I think we've been breaking records in the agriculture sector. Wheat farming this year, in this season, we expect to do much more than was ever done since 1966 in terms of wheat production. And when you look at one of the major export earners, tobacco, another record expected around 279 million kgs, 280 million, which actually surpasses the previous record of 2019. So when you look at that, throw in maize, you find that we're at the point where for this farming season, we are going to be self-sufficient. What we produce, around 2.3 million tons, is actually enough for the economy. So that's a positive. And when you look at mining, I think mining contributes more than 80% of export earnings, around about 20% to government revenues. And there you throw in gold. It also helps promote empowerment and growth of the informal sector, because we have artisanal miners actually contributing the most. When you look at manufacturing, of course, there is a knock around capacity utilization, but the sector is on point. So I think when you look at the economy and where we're going so far in the key sectors, we have positive developments that we can actually afford to hope to meet that 5.3%, which is on target for 5% growth for NDS1.
Okay. Yeah. And also, do you think that in terms of the target that was set under the mining industry, the mineral beneficiation before export, do you think that the recent introduction of the gold coins and the gold-backed digital tokens, are they a positive development towards improving the mining sector?
Thanks, Steve. I think those are positive developments. You will notice that one of our major issues is that you spoke about mineral beneficiation. I'll add value addition, because I can't speak of one without the other. So the major challenge of developing economies like Zimbabwe has been that we mainly export these commodities in their raw form, which means our terms of trade are skewed in a negative manner for us. So when we use our gold to actually extract value out of it, back our currency, and I think that's a positive, because now we're currently actually using our reserves to back the currency and have a positive result rather than just export it raw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Now, you and I both know that for us to grow the nation, we cannot do it straight out of our pockets. We may need debt to finance some of the development that we need, and then repay that debt when our economy stabilizes, and then we gain some benefits from what we have done with that debt. And now Zimbabwe is not excluded from the debt basket as well. We've got a total of $18 billion that was recorded in December 2022, and of that money, 12.8 billion is external, and just about 5.2 billion is internal debt. And we have seen the Second Republic going out and about, having these high-level meetings with institutions like the African Development Bank in terms of debt structuring, restructuring, such that we can afford to pay back the debt that we took. Any developments from the meetings that have been happening back and forth with the African Development Bank?
Thank you, Steve. So there have been engagements, as you say, with the FDB President, Dr. Adesina. One other major player in there is His Excellency, former President of Mozambique, Joaquim Chissano. I think what has happened in the main is a process of engagement, which is very important when you actually in arrears and have an external debt like ourselves. Engagement with all of the multilateral, bilateral creditors, the Paris Club, African Development Bank, and all that. It's a positive for the economy because we have gone out there and given our creditors a position around how we propose to clear the arrears. Because the thing with the debt is that the arrears can come in quite heavy. And you can get to a situation whereby you're barely clearing the arrears. So a culture of showing that we want to engage and we are committed to clearing. We have our fair share of challenges, but if we show that and engage, rather than just keeping quiet and not doing anything about it. So I think there's been some positive developments. We have actually managed to make some payments. Of course, 18 billion in debt is quite huge, coming as it does around 99.6% of GDP, which is quite huge. But we have made payments of around, in 2022, around 62 million or 64 million, thereabouts. The bulk of that has gone towards actually unlocking fresh borrowings, fresh support, so to speak.
Okay,
and the
absolutely.
other, yeah.
Let me hold you there. You
right.
talk of fresh borrowing, right?
Yes.
And this is more like to our external debtors, our external lenders. And what have we done so far in terms of what has the Treasury done in terms of cementing our position as a data of interest to these other external lenders, especially given that the IMF is giving a positive projection of the growth of Zimbabwe? Do you see us restoring our credit score on the international level?
Thank you. I'll point out that we have engaged the IMF, for an example, on the staff monitored program called SMP, so that we get to be assessed. They do their assessments, which is a positive, if you ask me. So by unlocking fresh support, you will be aware that we have actually received fresh support from China, from India, and that's a positive because it actually shows that we can unlock borrowing. If somebody is willing to lend to you, it means they believe in you, and over time, it's a mammoth task, but we can hope that it can then be done, that we will actually get back to our normal borrowing capacity, and that we can then get, as you are aware, we need balance of payments support, we need support for infrastructure development, for our social service nets, and all that. And if we don't get that kind of support, then it becomes quite difficult for central government to execute on its mandate.
Absolutely. And then we also have new information that is coming through from the Zimbabwe National Statistics Agency, which is known as ZimStats, that they released last Thursday with regards to one of the sectors that we highlighted as a key recovery sector, which is the manufacturing sector, whose capacity utilization went down by 3.2% in the first quarter of 2023. So now, looking at this leg in the capacity utilization, what could you possibly attribute it to?
Thanks, Steve. So in the main, the survey that you mentioned, the ZimStat survey, identified from respondents that the major three issues pertained, one, to power shortages. I would then hasten to say that when we look at the pillars that sustain our economy, one of them is energy. And if we can have a sustainable energy position, which we have seen the Wange thermal power station 7 and 8 coming into play. So the power issues, I think there has been an improvement lately, but that's subsequent to Q1. In Q1, they identified the power shortages because power was crippling their issues, their operations back then. They also identified the cash flow management, cash flow issues. Now, we have a tight liquidity situation, and banks are actually curtailed from further money creation because we want exchange rate and inflation stability. Now, that unfortunately also creeps in, and the manufacturing survey picked that. The other one that the manufacturing survey picked, the third one, pertained to, in the main, around issues around confidence, but the positive is that the respondents showed that going into Q2, they're actually quite confident. When you look at metrics like their stock levels, their order books, and all that, they appeared to be. So there has been some confidence going into the future, but they cited that they had a bit of uncertainty in the economic environment as the third issue at hand.
Thank you so much for joining us on this segment of the World of Business, where we were analyzing the performance of the key economic sectors that we highlighted for economic recovery. And indeed, there is room for the nation to reach a gross domestic product and the growth of by 5.3% by end of this year. And ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the second segment on the world of business. Do join me in the third segment where we give the platform to the entrepreneur of the week. For now, let's take a short break. Welcome to the third and final segment of the World of Business, where we give the entrepreneur for the week the spotlight. Now, the World of Business team traveled to Featherstone in Mashonaland East, where we visited Mr. Fanuel Chivandire, a youthful dairy farmer who traded his mechatronic engineering profession to become a dairy farmer and a milk producer on a large scale. Let's hear more from Sela Marere as she speaks to Mr. Fanuel Chivandire.
As part of the efforts to meet the national demand of 150 million litres of milk per year, today the World of Business team visited Mr. Fanuel Chivandire, the managing director of a milk-producing farm here in Featherstone, Mashonaland East. True to the president's mantra, Zimbabwe is open for business, the Chivandire family has decided to venture into milk production and dairy farming, which has not only supported the small-scale dairy farmers, but has also improved and increased the milk capacity of the nation. Hello, Mr. Chivandire, and thank you so much for joining us today. Mr. Chivandire, can you walk us through the activities of this farm?
We started dairy in 2008 with 5 cows. Currently, we are milking 152 cows with a total head of 346 cows. Per day, we produce 3.1 thousand liters, and per month, we produce 9,000 liters of milk.
When we're touring around this place, we noticed that you actually make and produce your own feed as a business. Can you take us through that process as well?
In dairy, the biggest cost driver you have is feed. For example, our milking head, each cow consumes around 33 kgs per day. So in order to produce milk, it's really dependent on the milk. The milk production is really dependent on the feed produced. So because we need our cows to produce, currently our head average is 21 liters. To reduce feed cost, we decided that it's viable. It's way more viable to realize more profit if we produce our own feed on farm.
So Fanuel, still under value addition as a subject and also one of the key priorities under the Second Republic, the government under the Livestock Recovery and Growth Plan has set a target to increase milk productivity from 79.9 million litres to 150 million litres per year. How, in your own view, are you contributing to us achieving this target as a nation?
Currently, we are producing 3,100 liters per day. Per month, that goes to 90,000 liters, and per year, it's 1,080,000. But currently, we have 70 pregnant heifers that we expect to be milking at the end of the year. That's an increase of 1,400 liters per day. And for a year, that goes from our milk production goes from 1080, which is 1,080,000, up all the way up to 1.6 million. Taking our annual production from 1.35% of the annual production in the country to around 1.6%.
Okay, definitely. You can see that you are actually contributing immensely to us getting more milk per year. Earlier on, you also mentioned that you have got a working relationship with the small-scale dairy farmers and the communities that are around you. Can you talk to us about your relationship with these dairy farmers?
We happened to have a couple of dairy farmers, local community farmers, that decided to venture into dairy through ZADF and the WE effect. And they started off with 5 dairy cows at the time. And they started off with 5 dairy cows, and we were housing them at our farm. We were the anchor farmer. They started off with 5 dairy cows, and at the moment they're now milking 18 cows. And they actually were able to acquire a tractor within those 3 years. We were acting as the anchor farmer. That means the same facilities our cows were getting, they were getting as well. And we also made sure that they were getting feed at subsidized fees. That is, they were only buying raw materials, and the processing and the making of feed was on the farm.
Besides you offering free training to the small-scale dairy farmers as one of your corporate social responsibility roles as well, do you have any other ways in which you're giving back to the community as a business?
We also sell heifers, yeah. That is pregnant heifers, because we're really big on our own breeding. For the people that we sell heifers to, we offer free training for their workers. Currently, we have 3 workers that are here from their own farms, small scale dairy farmers that are deciding to venture into dairy rather. And we offer training for them on how to rear the dairy cow. See, the dairy cow is very fragile, and it's really, you need to pay attention to every detail. And so we decide that whenever we sell heifers to someone, it's to us because they are our babies, they were born here. We make sure that we do a follow-up on how these cows are being treated and how they're being reared. And as such, we make it a priority that whenever someone buys cows, especially when they venture into dairy for the first time, we ask them to bring workers here before they collect the cows from us, so they can learn how these cows are being treated, how they're being raised, and how everything in dairy goes by, so that when they do finally get the heifers on their farms, they know how to do everything. And even after they have collected them, we are open to consultation so that we can guide them through the process.
Can you walk us through the number of employees that you have here, both part-time and full-time workers?
All right. Currently, we employ 35 workers. That is both males and females. We try to make sure that we employ husband and wife, so that people work as a family. Zvinobatsira kuti mukashanda semhuri, the more stable, and munokwanisa kuachieva zvinhu zvakawanda as a family.
When we started this conversation, you mentioned that you have got more females on the farm than males. Is there a particular reason why you actually have more females on the farm?
Dairy cows, like I said, are very fragile, yeah? And in terms of taking care of cows or gentle creatures, there's no one who can take care of gentle creatures than women. So we try to make sure that we have more women than men, because they understand how it is. Because in dairy, you're starting off from the calf, that is the newborn baby, up until the milking process. And it's all fragile processes, especially from the baby stage. So we try to make sure that we have women, because they understand the pain of giving birth. And as such, they have more care towards animals, or children rather, which is our babies. We regard these cows as our babies. So they understand more on how you can take care of a baby.
All right. So, Fanuel, I understand that it's in every entrepreneur's journey that they face obstacles and challenges along the way, some of which may actually force them to quit. What is that point that you thought maybe you were going to quit as a family, and what are the challenges that you had actually come across?
Buying ready-made feed from feed producers. And I remember at one point, after a milk check, because milk check come after every week, that's when we get our payments. We got a milk check and it wasn't enough to buy a 200-liter drum of diesel. And that's when sometimes you learn the hard way. That's when we decided to move from buying ready-made feed to making our own feed on farm. And we managed to reduce feed costs by 50%. And that was a big challenge. Again, sometime last year in December, we lost close to 18,000 liters of milk. We had issues with our generator, and milk went sour. And most of these milk processors, in fact, all milk processors do not take sour milk. They want their milk fresh in a certain temperature. So we couldn't attain that, and as a result, our milk went sour, and we didn't throw it away because it didn't make sense, but we gave it to the local community for free, because we again needed space for our tanks so that we can milk the next milkings. So that was a loss of around 18,000 liters of milk. Currently, because of that, we then acquired a new generator, a 100 kVA generator, to make sure that we do not have any issues. Now at the farm, we have 3 generators, 1 running one and 2 backup generators, to make sure that we do not have any issues of that. And also, I would like to thank the government, the president of the government, because after Dr. Basira visited, and through the work of the government, we can say that because of Wange 7 and 8 coming back online, we never have power cuts anymore, and that has reduced our costs, even for diesel costs because of the generator. And we are saying that we won't have any cases of our milk going sour because of power outages.
Okay, great. Can you tell us about your biggest achievements that you look back and point to and say that here we actually did well for ourselves?
My father started off with 5 dairy cows. Like I said, I'm a second generation dairy farmer. Currently now, we have over 300 dairy cows. That in itself is an achievement. And if you ask anyone in dairy, they will tell you how hard it is to grow a dairy head because they're very fragile, like I said initially. Secondly, we now do artificial insemination. We started doing artificial insemination in 2021. And we have seen the results from the 25 currently that gave birth through 6 semen of artificial insemination. We have 24 heifers. And in dairy, heifers are everything. And you have to be strict about your breeding, not just for growth, but in case you need a cash injection of a lump sum amount of money, you can sell your heifers as well. Also, from there, we moved into feed mixing. We started making our own feed in 2020. Like I said, it reduced our feed cost by 50%, which is something I regard as major.
So lastly, Fanuel, it has been such an enriching conversation that we've had, and I'm sure the viewers out there can agree with me that we've actually taken more nuggets from this conversation than ever before. Now, as your last words and your words of inspiration to the viewers, the would-be dairy farmers and those that are already into dairy farming, what is it that you'd like to tell them at this point?
As my father always says, Simba mkaka mwanangu runosinira. Through hard work, you can achieve anything in life. And that has to be the backbone of everything you do in life. Ukashanda nesimba, you get the rewards. And ivura takagarira inaka. There is no greater wealth on earth than this land. Ivura takapiwa near our government. Let's utilize it. It's not about kuti because you're a graduate, you have this blinkers in life where I should work for someone. What can you do to become an employee?
Indeed, our wealth lies in our soil, and Simba mkaka rinosinina and 150 million liter target this year and every other year that is to come is not going to be impossible to achieve. That brings us to the end of this week's segment of our Entrepreneur of the Week. Be sure to join us again next week. It's now back to the studio.
That was the third and the final segment of the World of Business that brought into the spotlight the youths that are also participating in the development of Zimbabwe as a nation. As the president always says, we'll leave no one and no place behind. And that brings us to the end of this edition of the World of Business. Let's see you again next week, same time, same place. But for now, have a pleasant viewing.